Hope is the place you want to go. Hope is the person you want to know. Hope is the feeling that carries you through. And hope is the future for me and you. Welcome to Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. Our stories find connection in this sacred place. And it matters not your gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, or ethnicity, age, or immigration status. My name is Bob Alto, and I am your worship associate, and I go by the pronouns he, him, his. As a newcomer or visitor, you are especially invited to fill out the newcomer form as indicated on the screen, or you can access directions in the chat function. You will remain muted during the service, but you can share your joys, concerns, and cares during prayer and meditation in the chat box. The gallery view is available. At the end of our service, you are invited to friendly conversation or caucus groups during our small group interactive coffee time.
May the love which overcomes all difference, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in and among us, now and always. I would like to invite Grayson to join me in the lighting of the chalice. I will also like to invite everyone at home to do so. Please join us today. Come into the circle of love and justice. Come into the community of mercy, holiness, and health. Come, and you shall know peace and joy.
Oh my gosh. That's good.
Thank you, Grayson.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best
moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down, roll down. When the poor cry out for shelter and bread, let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Now is the time in our service when we have the opportunity to share our bounty with each other. Since we're not going to be physically together to pass the a basket, we can do virtually by texting 73256, putting UUFNN in the message box and hit send. Then follow the instructions to provide your offering. You can also mail the check to the office at 780 Del Monte Lane, Reno, 89511. The most convenient way to donate is to sign up for automatic giving. Contact the office and Carol will send you an automatic draft authorization form. The March Share the Place recipient is the Native Communities Program of Plan. In these times of transitions, anxiety, and challenges, our UU spiritual community has kept us alive and thriving through the gifts of service and support, from phone calls to meals to active outreach, through our UU board, and through the gifts of service and support from phone calls to meals to active outreach, through our UU board, the Borderlands Justice Team, the Verde Posse, etc. Love, compassion have been expressed in so many ways, Let the offering begin. Please join me in the dedication of the offering to the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in faith, love, faith, justice, and joy. We dedicate ourselves, and these are our offering.
This is The Affirmation of Hope by Loretta Williams. We, bearers of the dream, affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for that community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is a struggle yet ahead, yet we know that in the struggle is the hope for the future. We affirm that we are co-creators of the future, not passive pawns, and we stand united in affirmation of our hope and vision of a just and inclusive society. We pledge to make our tomorrows become our todays.
My name is David Shirey, and the reason why I joined UUFNN is well known in the congregation. I came to this town, Reno, because my parents lived here. And they wanted some help. My mother was having some illness problems. So I moved to Reno. I was happy to do that. I'd visited Reno before. They'd been here for 20 years. And I loved this town. So I came here and I helped them out, but after they'd both died by 2011, I went into a depression. And in fact, I was in a mental hospital. I was very sick. I was very depressed. And my sister came to town to help take care of me once I got out. And she said, you know what you need is you may need a community of faith or a church that you can go to. I said, I've looked at the churches in Reno and they're all way too conservative. I can't find anything that's for me. She looked online and she said, well, there's this place called UUFNN. She says it's a Unitarian Universalist, and they look pretty interesting. And I said, great, but what's a Unitarian? And she said, well, let's give it a try. So I came here for my first service that same week. And I was on my medication. I was still in therapy. My ears were plugged up. We were still balancing the meds. And I couldn't see very well. But I came in and I heard the minister say, we welcome everyone here, including lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, those people who don't often get a sincere welcome at other churches. And as a straight, white, older, cisgender, as I said, heterosexual male, I thought to myself, this would be a very interesting place to come to because maybe I can learn something new. And sure enough, UUFNN has been my sanctuary, if you'll pardon the term. And I often tell my sister and brother, because my brother also took care of me when I was sick, they helped save my life after my breakdown. But it's UUFNN that has given me a reason to live. And so I find this the place where I can be understood, where I can share things with others, where I'm not judged. I try not to judge others. And as we say, we don't all have to think alike to love alike.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David, for that deeply personal story and your journey with UUFNN. I'd like to share with you that the Stewardship Committee has informed me that as of this morning, the 102 pledges have been received for a total of $296,000. That brings us within $39,000 of our goal. So I just want to mention that the goal of $335,000 is not a pie in the sky, hoping for the best, but it's the result of thoughtful discussion and analysis by the Finance Committee and your board after receiving input from our various committees. So we're grateful for everyone who's been able to make a financial commitment for the next fiscal year, but there's still time. There's still time to submit a pledge to close that gap of $39,000 for Keeping the Faith campaign. Thank you.
On March 16, 2021, Robert Aaron Long, age 21, he bought a handgun, and then, as dusk fell over the metropolitan Atlanta area, on that Tuesday evening, Long launched himself on what was a premeditated trail of terror. He drove to 3 Atlanta area Asian spas where he shot 9 people, killing 8 of them. What I would like to say is, dear Asian friends, I do understand your pain, your fears, your sadness, and the feeling of rage. You are not alone. We will be fighting with you. I would like to take a moment and do a moment of silence for our Asian brothers and sisters. Thank you. This poem is based upon a speech given by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He called it the beloved community, a place where people live together in peace and there is no violence or need. I see a world of people from every land, people from every race and culture standing hand in hand. We are a part of one family. Each person is a sister and a brother. Since we are bound together, let us support each other. As the human family, let us walk together in unity. Together, we can make the world a beloved community. Acts of hatred and cruelty tears at each person's heart. These acts shatter lives and break the human family apart. Some in the family suffer many hardships and despair. They need support and to feel from the family love and care. May the desire for peace and healing bring us together in unity. When we show justice and compassion, we build a beloved community. I dream of a world where hatred and injustice fade away. This is a world where peace shines upon all its bright ray. May there be a time when conflicts are no longer settled by a war. This is a world where love, peace, justice reign forevermore. My dream is for a world where people are treated with dignity and can use their gifts to build a beloved community. The treat others fairly, and try to live with them in harmony. Have patience with each other, no matter how difficult it might be. If you desire to see a better world, it starts with you. Don't grumble about how bad things are. Get busy. There is so much to do. Be a person who brings positive change and works for peace and unity. You can help to transform the world into a beloved community. May the day comes when love flows down like a mighty stream and the bright lights of brotherhood shine its bright beam, that we will be the day when people will come together from every land and race. They will stand together and as one people praise God for his grace. On that day, they will come together in love and unity. They will put away all conflicts and come together as a beloved community. Thank you.
There is always a light. When we're ready to see it, there is always a light. When we're ready to be it, to see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. There is always a light. There is always a light. When we're ready to see it, there is always a light. There is always a light. When we're ready to be it, to see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. There is always a light. 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 See the light, be the light, raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. There is always a light. 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 See the light, be the light, raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will be alive.
Shine your light in the darkness. Shine your light in the darkness.
To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night,
and be
to
a
climb this hill.
in
Together
the
we will.
world.
In the darkness, shine your light in the darkness. Let your bright heart burn out loud, be a girl in the world.
That was wonderful. You know, in the year 1967, the United States was deeply involved in a war in Southeast Asia, primarily in Vietnam, but also Cambodia and Laos. And President Johnson, a president who I had voted for, kept expanding the war, thinking that somehow by sending more troops, we would overpower the other side. Our country was becoming more and more divided about the conduct of the war and whether we should even be there. Well, I was one of those who hadn't quite decided on the efficacy of our ongoing battle. What I did know was that I wanted to finish my college education. I'd been a major party boy in my early college years. I know it's hard for you that know me to think that, but I really wanted to finish, but I was more concerned about partying with my buddies than studying, to the point where I was asked to take a break until I could get my act together. Well, in the interim period, Lois and I were married. I had a responsible job as a banker, and I was ready to return to college. Because of my record, I'd used up most of my draft deferments, except that being married was still a deferment. Well, because more and more troops were needed, that deferment was dropped and I was high on the draft list. This was also the time when Lois and I discovered the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. You know, by then I was back in college. I'd kind of mended my ways, and I joined ROTC to defer my military obligation. So here I was, knowing that I may be asked to serve in Vietnam, while at the same time, not being sure it was a war worth fighting. UUFNN at the time was quite small, but had highly intellectual and informative discussions on a whole range of subjects. In fact, in those days, we would have a speaker and an opportunity to talk back and ask questions, much like our forums that take place today. Obviously, the war in Vietnam was a point of much discussion. It felt so good to be able just to talk about that volatile and controversial subject calmly and with facts. It was a great comfort to me moving forward. That's when I knew I had found a beloved community. Fortunately, I never had to serve in Vietnam, but while I was at Fort Lee, Virginia, I overheard a tough, gnarly old sergeant say to a group of his comrades, "We should just line up those protesters and shoot them." Well, the hair went up in the back of my neck, and I dressed down that sergeant right there on the spot. I believe it was my now evolving UU philosophy that gave me the courage to do that. Well, following the military, Lois and I returned to Reno, and I heard about a meeting being held with some alumni to talk about some recent protests that had happened at the university involving an English professor who had laid his body down in front of some marching ROTC cadets to disrupt their parade. It was obvious that the alumni crowd that night was very hostile to this professor. Once again, I had to stand up for the right to protest, even though many of those in the audience were friends of mine. That was comfort to courage. You know, as the congregation grew, more and more strong women like Lois joined our fellowship. I was inspired by so many of them. And whenever I had a chance, I would advocate for equal participation and rights. You know, I helped start the Boys Club in Truckee Meadows, but one of my goals was to make it a boys and girls club as soon as possible, and that did happen in a very short period of time. In the late 80s, I was involved in opening female membership in the JCs, in Rotary, my business fraternity, where Delta Sigma Pi, where women members are now my brothers. And even Toastmasters was a hard-fought battle. I was involved in the women's right to reproductive freedom. Lois and I would even stand on street corners with our signs of protests and support. Nevada became a state with strong support of the right of choice. Those were proud moments. But again, the strength and humanity of the UU philosophy gave me the knowledge that I was on the right side of these issues, a beloved community. Shortly after my return from the military, I was asked to be president of the board of our fellowship. Of course, I was a total novice, but Jim and Betty Hulse took me under their wings and supported and educated me. They took me to a regional meeting that was called the Pacific Central District, where the major discussion at the time was that we were welcoming gays and lesbians to be ministers. That was 1972. And here we are today, with some denominations still fighting over this issue. A beloved community. You know, we have continued to connect and be uplifted by the connections to the broader UU world. Our fellowship has consistently been strong participants with and supporters of the regional and national Unitarian Universalist Association, as well as the UU Service Committee. When our children were teens, they would attend what was called con-cons, an opportunity for young people from all over the far West to gather and engage one another in issues that were important to them. Lois and I would transport and sometimes chaperone these events. They were transformative for them. You know, even though they do not currently attend church, they all identify themselves as UUs and continue to hold those values in their lives. I was also aware that several of our members, including Jim Holtz and Elmer Rusko, were active in the NAACP and worked with them to fight racial discrimination and fair housing in Reno. Once again, it was an opportunity to learn more about our own community and realizing that there was much work to be done. You know, we're still dealing with many of these same issues today. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. You know, last week, Reverend Karen, Midori, and Kristen led a service to examine our own perceived shortcomings in dealing with racial identity. After the service, we had the opportunity to break into small groups for guided discussion and discovery. So Kristen has kindly offered to give us an update on those discussions. Kristen?
So we more often think about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when we hear the term beloved community. The term was actually coined earlier in the 1900s by Josiah Royce. And Royce believed that every proposed reform, every moral deed is to be tested by whether and to what extent it contributes to the realization of the beloved community. He said that when one cannot find the beloved community, she needs to take steps to create it. And if there is not evidence of the existence of such a community, then the rule to live by is to act so as to hasten its coming. And the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. then expanded on Royce's ideas of beloved community. He understood that in addition to the necessary transformations of individuals, there was a need for deep reconstructuring of institutions if the beloved community was to be realized. It wasn't just about individuals, it was about institutions as well. So as Royce encouraged, we should be living as if to hasten its coming. I like to see it as something we are all striving for, recognizing that even when we are not living the perfect, ideal beloved community, we are committed to continually working towards it. As Dave says, this is what we do at UUFNN. We recognize the ways in which we have been complicit in systems like racism, and we are committed towards that vision of beloved community. Last week, we named some of the truths of systemic racism at UUFNN, and we will try to keep naming those truths and working towards transformation. I hope that you read the email we sent out with some follow-ups from that service. In April, we plan to begin a series of workshops that will help us learn how to recognize examples of racism in our community here at UUFNN, things like microaggressions, and work towards showing up in all the ways that we want to. These workshops will be open to all and will be co-facilitated by leaders in our local community. And each of these workshops will be followed by some more racial identity caucusing like what we did last week. Because like what we mentioned, there is some work that needs to be done together and some work that we need to do separately. We are also working to address the systemic racism at a structural and systemic level, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told us, looking at our policies, at the ways we work together, all of those things that lead to systemic racism at UUFNN. And you'll be hearing more about this. And we also invite you to please be in dialogue with each other and with us about the thoughts that you're having around all of this. And today after the service, you'll be invited to participate in coffee hour as you always are. And we will also be offering 2 racial identity caucus groups if you'd like to continue some of the conversations you started last week. We are committed to bringing about the beloved community, and we know that it's a journey.
Thank you, Kristen. You know, we as a beloved community are always trying to be better stewards of our sense of what is right in racial relations, the environment, income inequality, LGBTQ plus recognition. We're partnering with Faith and Action on housing, homelessness, healthcare, and education. And our fellowship helped start that organization that has grown in scope and professionalism. Now, currently, members of our congregation are taking time to visit with legislators from our area about specific issues. You know, from the time I was a little boy and our family had severed all connection to the Catholic Church, I continue to feel a need for spiritual connection. I would jump at a chance to visit various churches with my friends. I became active in the Methodist Youth Fellowship, MYF. I would often ask questions about what I was being told, and the answer often was, well, you just have to have faith. That never seemed like a logical answer to me. As president of my MYF group, I had an opportunity to attend a summer camp in the beautiful hills outside of Santa Cruz. The final evening, as we sat on a sloping grassy area looking down at the speaker, who was given a very emotional sermon, he concluded with a request for all those who had accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior to rise up and come down and be blessed. All these young people around me stood up and started moving forward. I soon realized that I was the only one still sitting on the grass, not moving. As a UU, I've discovered that it's all personal. I found that what inspires me is the continued sense of wonderment, that sense that we are a part of nature, and that is divine. By being with people who share the same sentiments, even if we have different belief systems, by sharing music, readings, and experiences with each other, that is what I consider a community of faith. Or as David Shirey said, a sanctuary. We are resilient. We've learned to cope this last year. We're anxious to be physically together again, but safely. Service to others is a high calling. I'm so proud when I hear others refer to us as the Justice Church. That to me is being spiritual. That is a beloved community. So may it be, and amen. Thank you, Bill. It's so nice to see the inside of our fellowship. You know, this is a special time in our service when we can share our joys and sorrows with each other. You can put them in the chat box or just simply hold your thoughts in your heart. As Xiomara mentioned, let's hold in our hearts all the victims of senseless violence and hatred. So let's just take this time to reflect and share. this also. I close our prayer and meditation with words you may recognize. I'm paraphrasing the words of one of our favorite hymns. When our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our hearts is in a holy place. When we tell our story from deep inside and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. And now, let us sing together. Our heart is in a holy place. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I especially want to give a shout out to my family. I have our family in Reno, our family in Colorado, and our family in Seattle all joining us today. So thank you for being here. And watch your email for announcements of upcoming events. There's always so much going on here at UUFNN. And if you know of anyone who would like to receive our emails, just fill out the online card in the chat box. And feel free to share our link with folks who are feeling isolated or just may need some connection. Watch for announcements like the Verdi Posse and their needs to help feed our neighbors without homes. And today has been mentioned a couple of times. after the service, you're invited to participate in our coffee time as always. Or if you'd like to continue some of the conversations around systemic racism we started last week, you're invited to join one of our racial identity caucus groups. For those groups, we'll be doing some of the separate work that we talked about last week. So you're invited to join a group that reflects your racial identity. So either the white group or the Black, Indigenous, and People of Color caucus. And so how we're going to do this is you're going to put in the chat box which group you self-identify with, which group you want to join, and send that chat. And Philip will be then putting people into the different rooms, breakout rooms. So realize, though, this is going to take a little bit of time. And you can also go into the regular coffee time. So please be patient while we place you in the appropriate room. And lastly, I just want to thank Xiomara Rodriquez for her outstanding stint as a worship associate. She's brought passion and insight to these services, but she's taken a little break from these duties. So we hope to see her back soon. But we have two new folks joining our team, JJ Lee and Bill Miller. And next week, they'll be on this screen. So let's go to the closing song, Guide My Feet.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
And I close this service with the words of Elizabeth Tarbox. And so I say ours is a story of faith and hope and love. I say it is our need for one another that binds us together, that brings us laughing and limping into relationships and keeps us at it when we're otherwise might despair as the fix we are in. I say it is the holy we need, the eternal beyond our comprehension. And one place we can find it is here, working and worshiping together. And I say there is a transcendent value worthy of our loyalty, upon which we may set our hearts, and its divine manifestation is love.
On behalf of Linda, I'll say that she is busily working the rooms right now, and we'll get those set up and you'll get your invite in just a minute. So please be patient. Thank you, everybody.